But one thing that is not a fantasy is the Canucks. They are trying to live in a fantasy or maybe whip up something that is going to turn into some cold, hard reality. They kick out a lot of things in management, something that Vancouver Canucks fans over this past season have been commanding. Travis Green is out. Bruce Boudreau is in. He becomes the 20th head coach in franchise history. Will coach the rest of the way this season, and I believe next season as well, or there's a possibility of next season. I'm not too sure about that, but I know he's got this year and probably most of next year. And he's made the playoffs for this is his resume on display. Made the playoffs in 10 of his last 13 seasons, won 8 division titles, and won the Jack Adams in '08 with the Washington Capitals. Big question on the minds of Canucks fans, and I've reiterated this tons. Canucks fans are very similar to Leafs fans. The media coverage is almost the same down there. They get really into their team, as what we've all seen from this side of the country going looking at that side. They are very passionate about their team and so passionate that they got 2 guys out of a job. So is Bruce Boudreau the right guy for the job? Now, I've seen a lot of Bruce Boudreau. He's actually a great guy. Evan, I don't know. I'm not going to be assumptuous with this, but I don't know, maybe your dad has ever talked to Bruce Boudreau. I know he works for NHL Network, so he's always on air. He's a great guy to listen to.
He knows Brucey boy.
Of course, yeah. He's a terrific spokesperson. He knows the game a lot. He knows a lot about players. And one thing about the players that he coaches, he allows them to play their game. He allows them to use their talents. He doesn't force them into a system like maybe you would have saw with Travis Green, where it was a dump and chase style, forecheck first, and maybe circulate something that way. He lets the skilled players do what they want to do, and the freedom that sort of allowed his teams in the past to do well. That 10 of 13 season in the playoffs is probably a number that tested that. So is this guy right here the right man for the job? Evan, I'll start with you because probably you and your family have the most inside information on this dude.
Well, yeah, I think he is the right person for the job. And I honestly, I don't know if there would have been any other hires out there that I would have taken over Bruce Boudreau's. It's just specifically for this role, when you still have a great, the roster, the names on the roster look great. And the depth is definitely there. I just think Bruce Boudreau is he's definitely a no bullshit coach. Like, he'll tell you straight up, like, if you're not playing well, he'll let you know it. And I think he's almost the perfect coach for Elias Pettersson struggling this year. Considering after getting such a handsome contract, you'd figure he would have the motivation to do well, but he hasn't been that yet. And even a guy like never mind. I was going to say Quinn Hughes, but he's done. He started off a little slow. He started to pick it up as the year has gone on. So to him, but even Brock Besser, who I don't know if it's the fact that him being on the trade market has just hurt him mentally because his name's definitely been thrown out there. But I do think Bruce Boudreau is a great hire for them. This is a team that definitely needs to pick it up. And I wouldn't be surprised if they did make the playoffs, because Bruce Boudreau is the type of coach that can really turn things around. Like, you look at Daryl Sutter in LA, when the Kings hired him, the Kings were 10th place in the Western Conference, and the playoffs looked like a long shot. Granted, they got the 8th seed, but as long as you get in, you have a shot. And I think Bruce Boudreau, even if they are that third, I don't think they'll be the third team in the Pacific, but I definitely think they could possibly be a wild card team. He's a coach that's built for the playoffs. He's been there before. He's experienced it. He knows what it's like. And I think he's great. I think he can really turn it around. And then once we get to Jim, I'll let them go. And then once we get to Jim Benning, I can rip on him.
Yeah, Benning is due for his licks, man. Jared, you sent a video. I don't know if it was you or Adamo. Someone sent a video.
That was the funniest.
I didn't know that much about Jim Benning. Holy Jesus. I know we're going to get into him in just a second, but man, a lot of this was warranted and very years in the making, I guess you could say. But I don't want to go into him just yet. I want to stay on Bruce Boudreau. I think he's going to do well in Vancouver, because look at the guys that are struggling on the score sheet every single night. They're big names. That is probably the one thing that drives teams crazy. We've seen it with the Leafs, and this was evident throughout this season as well. If your stars aren't producing, it's going to drive your head coach crazy. It's going to drive your team crazy. It's going to drive your fan base crazy. If you got a guy who's going to give you guys freedom to play the way you want, I think you're sort of, and this is all theoretical, like if you're looking at it in this sort of way, it would make sense that the guys are starting to play better because you're giving them a bit more freedom, and you're not letting them stick to just one specific plan. That's one way to look at it. Another thing to look at is that, and Evan, you were putting the cart before the horse a little bit because of the playoff talk. Let's take it a day at a time, because this team still has a lot of holes to fill, especially that you need those top guys to come up. You don't know. This is just theoretical. Like I said, if Bruce Boudreau implements this coaching strategy that he's done throughout his career, which don't fix what ain't broken, I think they're going to go well off. But what if they don't? That's when it's going to get even worse. And they have to pick it up now. Like the pieces are falling out of the sky right now. They are losing traction very fast. That Pacific, we mentioned off the during the pre-shows when we were like teeing up the season and this divisional preview. It was a wide open Pacific. Now it's still wide open, but the window is closed significantly. So you have to start picking up the points while you can. And it's not like their schedule gets pretty easy. They're still going to go against hard and tough teams. So I don't know. I think Bruce Boudreau is the perfect guy to this. I was thinking Randy Carlisle, and I'm going to bring up his name in just a second when we're hitting Philadelphia. I don't know. It's we haven't heard much about him. Maybe. I don't know.
I know. I have an idea for Philadelphia. Who I think
no, we'll get into save Philly, man. We got a lot to discuss about Philly because nothing is going great their way either. But I don't know. That's my thought on Bruce Boudreau. Do Jared Adamo? Do you have anything to add on Bruce Boudreau? Or you want to jump to Benning?
I think we should go to Benning if he doesn't.
Yeah, I'm pretty much good to go to Benning. I was just going to say, absolutely, this was warranted. I'm happy that both of them are out of jobs now. Or not, I'm not happy that they're out of jobs.
All right, so Jared's
not a personal thing. I think for the team, this is the right move. They needed to move on from Benning, and they needed to move on from Travis Green. It's just they have the talent on that roster, but just nothing was working out there. And as you guys said, when you look at Benning, especially years in the making, you could have made the argument for firing him many years ago. He's been in this job too long, and it just hasn't worked out. They had their one miracle run in the COVID year, but this is well overdue. And I'm happy that for Canucks fans, I'm happy that they finally did this and could kind of change their whole trajectory as an organization.
And I mean, it shows what the voice of a fan base can do. The voices quite literally speak volumes on a team, and what an impact the Vancouver Canucks had with their team. They got their season-long wish, so it appears, to answer with Green getting fired and going along with them, as we all talked about, Jim Benning. He was sacked alongside with, and man, a lot of guys sort of got kicked to the side of the road here. The team's assistant GM was out the door, the assistant coach as well. So during his run with the Canucks, earmuffs if you're Canucks fans, because you don't want to relive any moments of this. During his run with Van City, the team owned the league's sixth worst point percentage. His career with the team was highlighted, and let's give a little bit of love to him. He's drafted Pettersson, which I don't know. A lot of these should be no-brainers. He drafted Hughes. He drafted Besser and Demko, and he also acquired JT Miller from the Tampa Bay Lightning. So give a little bit of props there. You want to say something, Evan?
Yeah, I wanted to say about the obvious thing. When Quinn Hughes was in his draft year, Pat Brisson, his agent, told the Montreal Canadiens draft Quinn Hughes, and they took Kotkaniemi instead.
Oh boy!
So I wouldn't say the obvious pick because Pat Brisson's a very well respected agent.
Yeah,
and knows the Hughes family very well.
I was going to say the Pettersson pick. That also wasn't very obvious.
Yeah,
it was. Apparently, he was ranked like. I not tied. Like everyone's like, who the fuck is this guy? He was like ranked out of the top 10.
He wasn't even ranked in the first round.
Pettersson, I think he was definitely
or maybe late,
high.
Like really late in the first round.
Yeah. I was like, Pettersson was a reach.
They reached on him, yeah.
But fucking you hit, that's why you draft for skill. That's another topic for another time.
No, so let's not kick him in. He got a couple wins in Vancouver, and a GM for that long should have a couple wins. Nothing's very sustainable in what's screaming in the face. No big playoff wins, no big Stanley Cup wins, as that's the only aspiration in this league. But I mean, you mentioned that one, and I saw it in that video. Jake Virtanen was drafted over, I believe, who was he drafted over?
William
Nylander
and Big Dick Nick while we're at it.
Yeah, Big Dick Nick.
Yeah.
Love
Throw his name in there.
Better than friggin' that asshole Virtanen.
Oh yeah, no, that's another thing that's
not that hard to top Virtanen.
No, exactly. And another thing, this is probably the biggest one, probably the most recent one that we can look at. And Canucks fans, again, I really remind you to cover your ears. The long deals, and for absurd amounts of money that he was digging for his team, and that dug most of his grave here in Vancouver. Eriksson, Roussel, Sutter, Beagle, all massive deals and massive change to go with it. Nothing came from it. So with no lone individual managing the ship, what I believe has the potential to be the rest of the season. I don't think they're going to get a GM this season. I think that maybe you want to push that towards the off season and let the guys see what you're. I don't know. They have a bunch of loose change lying around in that management staff. I saw Henrik and Daniel Sedin. I think they're in front office too. So that's a little skeptical, but I don't know. I don't think they're going to deal with any of it right now. But is the Canucks wish, and try to hear me out on this question. It might sound a little confusing. I will try to clear it up as best I can because I was thinking about it, and it says, if you think about it correctly, it kind of makes sense. Is the Canucks wish to fire Benning something they may regret? Reason why, and don't look at like the resume.
I'm gonna look at you like that.
No, yes, the resume, like the resume, yes. Is it worth them treading water the rest of the way to finish? And we were discussing about it last year, the twilight zone of the league. Evan, you were talking about playoffs. I think that's a little extreme. What if they're finishing between 20th and 28th, 30th, and they're not 30th, but 20th to 25th, 26th, that zone where your season's sort of out of whack. It's just a wasted season in general. And you got nothing to show for it. It's just gone. And the reason why I say this is because Jim Benning, you don't got one guy steering the ship. Now you got a bunch of loose guys. And this is obviously if they don't go around hiring another guy. They could possibly do that before Christmas, right after Christmas, whatever it may be. But if they just stay, no guy leading the ship, it's just Bruce Boudreau managing from the bench, and this season goes lost, should Vancouver Canucks fans be happy? Or is this going to bite them in the butt? Does it make sense? Or do I got six heads and I'm looking really crazy here? I don't know. Be honest.
I get the question, but I think no. The right answer was to move on and fire him. Like he had his time there. Good. He has his resume. Good. He had obviously not success in the terms of like a long playoff run or anything, but like he had his moments there. There was ups and downs for sure. At this point, 2021, the way the team was trending, the writing was on the wall. The time was now to get rid of him, kind of try to savor this season as much as possible. And in general, just like the team needed change. They have the players there. I still think they're a talented team, but something wasn't working there. I get what you're asking. I get the question. Maybe
it's out there.
It's not hindsight 2020. The future, like no one knows what will happen. That's more the right thing to say there. Like obviously no one knows what's going to happen a few years down the line. But at this point in time, firing him was the right move because I do believe they have the talent. But when things weren't working, he's very much hasn't done the right moves to address the team, to fix the team, to try to get them back on the board, back competitive. He's kind of very much he's either sat back and not made moves at the right time, or he's made very reactionary moves that have ended up costing them. He just very much hasn't done things right in his tenure as GM. And I get the question, but no, at this point, I'm not a Canucks fan, but they're a team I actually don't mind, and I think this is the right move for their team. I think their fan base would agree. I kind of everyone in that organization would agree that time to change things was now.
Yeah, and it's hard to look at it from, we're sitting in Toronto talking about a Vancouver team on the other side of the nation. You're not getting the inside scoops, what the fans are really feeling. You're not getting the vibe there. If it's Toronto, it's fire, your house is burning down. You know what's going on. You need stuff done now. So kind of hard to judge that way. But I definitely do think, and this is why I kind of asked the question, I just wanted to see if you guys were to think on the fans' perspective, if it was going to be something that they kind of wish to take back. Because I don't know, like if something... In Canucks fans, you better be wishing, if you're listening here, you better be wishing that someone's coming in and they can turn your season around, because you fired Jim Benning. This thing could have been pushed and you're right now treading water where you're looking like to make a mistake. And the reason why I say this, you're what looked like to be, if Jim Benning was still in office here, what looked to be next off-season priorities are now switching over to the trade deadline. Now you're thinking, okay, you got a chance, and this is what a fan base wants. We don't want your team to just tank out of nowhere. You're giving the fan base a bit of hope now. If you're going to move all those offseason priorities now and cram it all in, I'm not going to say all in, but go all in to make a playoff push and nothing comes of it, and you finish in that twilight zone, as I'm going to reference it, then I think there's going to be some more problems, and you're just digging yourself an even bigger hole with Benning out of office. So I think that's an interesting angle to look at it. And I'll turn it over to you, Evan, and then I'll get back to you, Adamo. Is Benning the right move to go? Is he more than overdue to get out of here?
Yeah, he is, but I disagree with your point because I think the Canucks have the capabilities of still making the playoffs this year. Like, I don't think that's completely out of the picture. With the fact, I don't think off-season moves now become trade deadline moves. If you're lucky, if you could still keep Brock Besser for the rest of this year and then worry about it in the off-season, like I still think teams will be on the phone asking for him. And it just reminds me so much of 2012 where you have with the Kings, where you have the players, it's just the system isn't working, or the system isn't working anymore. And I think that's the situation with Vancouver, and just how Daryl Sutter is a tough nosed guy when he was in LA. Bruce Boudreau's the same way will be the same way in Vancouver. And I think he can really turn around a bunch of players' seasons, that guys that weren't doing well, that I think we look at this in March, they will be a lot better. So it's just a matter of like fresh new faces. And I really think the Vancouver Canucks are looking at themselves like, okay, we're 0-0-0. Like now, like let's see what we can do from here on out. And I'm looking at like the standings right now. Although they've played this like same amount of games as the second place wildcard team, it's only 9 points that separates the two. And although that sounds like a lot, when you're thinking longevity, like you still got a shot.
No, I mean, everything has to click. That's the big thing. If nothing's clicking, and it's as easy enough for the Vancouver team right now to not click than it is to click. There's nothing that's showing me right now, even a coaching change. I talked to Bruce Boudreau. He's a terrific coach, terrific human being. I love the way he talks. I love the way, I think he's going to be fine here, but it's still nothing too crazy that's going to instill, to me at least, that this team is going to click automatically with a coaching change. You need to start building now. I don't know. That's why I mentioned you can't bring false hope. They start clicking now, then you're bringing stuff like, okay, now trade for this, trade for this, trade for this. Let's go all in, make the playoffs. That's what they want to do. This fan base, man, they are hungry to make the playoffs and get wins. Because like you said, once you punch your ticket in the playoffs, anything can happen. It's anybody's guess. You want to add something?
Can I
Evan?
just say,
yeah, please.
I think like I'm gonna like I think something similar. I'm just like something with Dustin Brown needs to happen with Brock Besser, where you just sit him down and you tell him that he's gonna be a Canuck like for this year. Like just tell him like don't worry. Like there's the issues where Dustin Brown wasn't having a great year, the captain of the team, and and his name was involved in the trades. And similar, obviously not Brock Besser isn't like wearing a letter, but he has 4 goals in 22 games. And that's something that you're not used to seeing from a guy who tore it up at UND, who has been great throughout his career in the NHL. And in that first game that Dustin Brown was told, like, you're going to be a king, he scored a hat trick. And I was at that game where he against Chicago, where, and he said that moment where Tim Lewicki came into the owner of the team that came in, I'm sorry, yes, or the team came into the locker room and said, like, don't worry. It just makes you feel comfortable. And I think someone needs to tell for that, or else he is traded, and then you do trade him.
No, you make a great point. Who's sitting him down to have that conversation? Is it Boudreau? Is it Henrik Sedin? Because you're right. If you take away that uncertainty, you're going to be
honestly,
a whole new
I think it does need to be Daniel and Henrik Sedin, because he played with those guys his rookie year in Vancouver. I think he's very comfortable around those two guys, and also their stature within the organization is very, very high. I think if you had a sit down conversation with him and just like said, like, look, like, I know what's going on in the media. You're in Canada. It's one of the worst markets to be in for a player, especially because there's just so much pressure on you constantly. Like, just relax. Like, you're fine. Like, you're not going anywhere, regardless of what they say and what they say. Like, you're chilling. Like, just play your game, play the way you know how to play. And I think that's why I think that they can make the playoffs still.
No, I think that's going to be definitely needed. I'm actually interested to see if they end up doing it. I'm sure it's never going to get published. No one's ever going to say it's going to be a closed door thing, obviously. But it sort of kind of feeds into what I was saying before. Like, if there's no set general manager, that's the thing. Does that make it better or worse? You don't got one guy sitting you down and say, listen, You got some certainties here. I'm here. I'm the general manager for the foreseeable future. I got your back. Now you got Henrik Danielson Dean. I don't know who it's going to be, but it would be it's a pretty cool situation if they're sitting you down and saying, listen, you're going to have some certainties going forward. Don't worry, just play your game. Like, I don't know if they're the guys to predict that. That's the only reason why I'm saying I think it's the right call. They should be doing that. I think Besser and even Pedersen, for that matter, should be sat down and have a talk with them. Not Pedersen to the fact that he already has his contract, he's making his money, but the fact that, listen, reset, new start, let's start at a different sort of pace. And let's see if anything goes from that. Adamo, I'm going to turn over to you, and I think I'm going to go into one more question about the Vancouver Canucks. But what did you make of the firing of Benning? And was it not so warranted? I think everyone knows it's pretty much warranted, but I don't know. Do you have any additional comments to add to the Jim Benning situation, him leaving Vancouver?
Not really. I think you guys hit the nail on the head pretty much with everything. I'm not glad that he's out. I'm glad for Vancouver fans.
Jared's glad that he's out.
Yeah.
Screw his job.
You dick. He's gone.
Ask for his lunch money.
I think they need to. I think they need to, like. It sounds crazy that like a last place team should be buying, but they should be buying just because Pedersen, your superstar center, a guy who I wholeheartedly believe when he's on, he is like a top 10 player in the NHL. And you have this young guy. You only have him for 3 years, but is it 3 or 2 years? I think it's 3 years, right?
3 years.
His contract? Yeah, 3 years at like 7.8 or something ridiculous.
No, like 6 something.
No, I thought it started with the 7.
Oh, maybe.
I think
I don't know. Regardless, under 8 for like a top 10 player is nuts. You need to go buy, and like now you have your goalie locked up. You have JT Miller, you have Brock Besser, you have so many star forwards, and then the defense
is
holy shitting. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Tyler Myers as your top pairing. You have 2 borderline AHL players, like, as your top pairing right now. It's concerningly bad how bad their defense is, and like it needs addressing immediately. But if you can get like an even average level defense, like literally just average, like I don't know who's average. Like if you switch the Vancouver Canucks decor and like I don't know who's like an average. Even the LA Kings, switch like the LA Kings decor, like with a healthy Drew Doughty, the Canucks are like a cup contender. I seriously believe that. So they should probably buy whoever's the next GM. Should be Mike Fuda or Matthew Darsh in Tampa. One of those two.
No, I mean, add to it, Jared, please.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to say I completely agree with that point, because as much as right now in the standings they're a basement team, they're built like a basement dwelling team, they should be more competitive than they are. It's pretty glaring when you look at the lineup what the issue on that team is. It's a lack of defense. And as Adamo said, I think they're a few good defensemen away from being a very competitive team. I don't know if I'm going to hammer them with the cup contender status, but they should be a competitive team. They should be as close to a lock to a playoff spot in that Pacific Division as you could get. They should be one of the most competitive teams in that division. They just aren't playing it like it right now. It's pretty clear why the offensive players that should be a lot more productive than they aren't playing like it, and the defense is ridiculously lacking. So yeah, I think at this point buying is the move, because you need to be able to try to savor this season as much as possible. Going into the year, they should have been one of the most competitive teams in that division. They're obviously not playing like it, but there is enough time in December that if you could string together even like a good next 15 games, let's say, they're all the way back into the conversation to make the playoffs. So at this time of year, things change pretty quick. Yes, 2 and a bit months into the season, nothing's been good for that team. It's been lackluster. But there is enough time if they could string together some wins, if they could make some much needed adjustments, if they could try to find a way to talk to their star players, get them back to buy into the system, get them back on board. They should be able to find a way with this roster to make it at least a somewhat positive season. So I think what both of you guys are saying, what Evan and what Dan was saying, is completely true. I think you guys all nailed it.
And buying in. And first of all, I want to say, being the last guy, I can't say because I'm the host here. How bad does it feel being the last guy that I turn it over to? Like, you got no room to go, nowhere to bring to the table. I'm so sorry. So sorry.
Unless you like have a different opinion, you know?
Yeah, you got to be out there like my I'm not gonna say
Jim
it's a
Benning
dumb
is the
question.
GOAT.
I didn't say Jim Benning was the GOAT.
I think they
Put that
should
on
fire
me.
Dubas.
Fire
I'm
Dubas.
kidding.
Fire Dubas.
Fire Dubas. Fire Keith.
For
Trade
sure.
Matthews.
Fire Dubas. Yeah, exactly. What's
Make
Matthews?
Marner
So
the captain.
6 goals in as many games? What's that?
He's
What's
fucking
that?
gross. He's so good.
He's
Ugh.
gross. No, but stay on topic here. One last one for me, and I don't know if Adamo and Evan, you guys can relate to this. Personally, I played baseball, so I can't even relate to this from a sport perspective.
I
there,
played baseball.
oh, well,
Put a
you're better
high
at
school
hockey,
baseball hat
I
on.
guess.
But yeah,
Oh
No,
yeah.
it's not really a baseball. It's more of a sports thing, and I think it applies to every
6-time
sport.
All-star for baseball.
Okay, pump your tires even more. It's sort of a tradition on this on this show.
I
But
don't
wait
like
till you
to
get to your
pump a lot.
player props later on, and you
oh,
pump
the
those
team
tires.
props.
The team props now. Video was sick,
Dude,
by the way. I'll
okay,
give it
it's
to
still
you.
alive. It's still alive.
All right, so this is my question for you. How much responsibility should the players have on their shoulders for what happened to Benning and Green? And is this going to affect them? Is this going to make it better or worse going forward now with Bruce Boudreau and no GM anonymous behind
Can
the
we
dish?
make this like quick? Can we make
Yeah,
this
no,
one
no,
quick?
yeah,
'Cause
this
it's-
was quick.
it's
We're getting
yes,
into
it is
Philly
on
soon.
like it is on the as much as it is on Jim Benning and his really questionable moves, giving an egregious amount of AAV to players, as we saw like Louis Erickson, Antoine Roussel is. I love his intensity and I love what he brings to a team. He's more of like a $1 million player, not like a $3 million player. And I would even give Roussel less than that, maybe even 950. But I think it's also on the players too. Pedersen isn't playing up to what he used to be. Brock Besser isn't doing as well. I love Bo Horvat. I love the intensity, just not putting up the offensive production I think you were hoping for. And I just think it's a lot of guys that are going through things. But it's always on the players as much as it is on the GMs. It's just you can't fire a player. You can fire a GM.
Yeah, and
Well, at the same time, though, like you can't expect bad players to be good. You see their decor, like other than Quinn Hughes, those are
Quinn
like
Hughes isn't even a
number
partner to
fives.
play with.
He's literally playing with Travis Hamonic, who's like a fine NHL player, but what the hell? They're like you. Like,
You're telling me you can't get anyone better to play with that player? That's concerning. At least
I know.
Riley, they went to go grab Brody to play with. Or
I wonder if like the AHL, all like the best 6 AHL defensemen versus like the Vancouver Canucks defensemen. I'm genuinely curious which would be a better decor. Like I seriously think it'd be a debate because like, come on,
oh, it's brutal. It's
come
brutal.
on.
That's
It's
tier one.
awful.
What you need to fix when you get there. New GM, if there is going to be one, or anything. Something has to happen within trade deadline, maybe even before that, Christmas, whatever. Changes need to happen in Vancouver. I don't know. I kind of want to move to Philly because these two teams are very similar. Evan's itching to talk about the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah, I got dinner soon, so I want.
Oh, he's got dinner on the table. Okay,
I want to get points on Philly and Florida, and then get out of here.
All right.
You're staying for the trivia. Come on now, it's getting intense.
He's all the way that far back. I don't even think there's a reason for this.
There's no hope. I thought
he's given up, throwing the towel. Anyways, we'll see how we do on time. But again, Vancouver, you have things that need to start clicking now, and it's all. Let me just assure you this: we saw this in the beginning of the season with the Maple Leafs. This is what you can maybe take away from the Toronto Maple Leafs side of it. Things can get just as good as they got just as bad. Your whole season to start was garbage. You're sitting dead last in the Pacific, I believe, or something around there. You're not very. Your standings in the standings are pretty bad. It can go just as good, just as fast as it was bad. So take that with some confidence. Let it ensure you that things can be okay. I know Vancouver fans think that the sky is falling, but I can assure you it will all work all right. And let's see if Boudreau is the right man for the job, as we all say he is. But